everyone, I am Alexa Donne, and today we are going to be talking about building author websites. Why do you need one? When should you have one? Where should you build it? How much will it cost you? I'm going to be downloading you on everything I know, and it's a decent amount of knowing. I know a lot. So this video is going to be a little bit long, but I am going to include down in the description some timestamps so that you can skip around if you want to. And especially at the end, I am going to be going over my 3 key recommendations at all price points and skill levels with an on-screen demonstration to show you some of the sites that I'm talking about. So I want to start a little bit with my background with building websites, just to give you context of kind of where I've come from, my perspective, and some of my skill sets. I have been building websites for, like 2/3 of my life since I was a teenager. I really got into it when I was 13 or 14, so that was like 1997, 1998, and it was all because of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I had a fan site. I had a fan site and I ran a fan fiction archive. I taught myself basic HTML. I was on my high school's web team because I was so cool, guys. I was so cool. And I've just always been really fascinated by it. And it's been really interesting to see how things have evolved. And we have come a long way. You no longer really need to know HTML to build a pretty attractive website. There are some excellent options out there, but some of the best ones are not free, though I am going to be going over free options as well. Personally, I've been doing personal websites since about 2007. I've had a Blogger, I've had a WordPress. Those were blog-based sites. I've also done self-hosted. I've been self-hosted for at least the last 5 or 6 years, and that is when you pay a host to host your website, but you have to do everything. But it can still be DIY. I'm not an expert. I have all sorts of shortcuts to make self-hosting work for me, and I'm going to go over that too. But before I talk about where you build your website or how you build your website, I'm going to recommend that you get yourself a domain. I think that is the #1 most important thing when you are setting up an author website. It's going to make you look way more professional if you have a .com that is easy to remember and makes sense to you. It should really be your name. So my domain is alexadonne.com. But if that hadn't been available, I could have done alexadonneauthor.com, alexadonnebooks.com, adonneauthor, adonnebooks, alexadonneya, etc. Because I think it's really important to get a .com if you can. Most people default to .com when they are searching for a website, and if they know you as an author, the most likely thing they're going to do, they might not even Google you. They might go to the address box and type in yourname.com, and you ideally want the site that comes up to be yours. Domains are going to cost you about $15 a year, and I highly recommend getting them through your web host, whatever host you choose to go with. I don't recommend getting your domain from a site like GoDaddy. It is kind of the brand name in domain sites. I mean, it's the one that I knew for ages and ages, but I've just heard some really bad horror stories, including from fellow authors, about stuff going wrong with GoDaddy, both with their hosting service, with it not being particularly good, but also with them getting really screwed over with the domain that they bought from GoDaddy. I've heard stories of, the domain expiring and the author missing it by like 24 hours, and then GoDaddy holding their domain hostage for a year before they could buy it back at an exorbitant fee. So even though GoDaddy has lots of deals where you can get your domain for $2.99 for a year or $4.99 for a year, I just don't think it's worth the savings. Pay $15 a year to a reputable web host and know that you won't have a problem keeping your domain at $15 a year in the far-flung future. It's just the safer option in my opinion. Now, what should you have on your author website? Think of your author website as your portal for all things on the internet. It should be a one-stop shop where people can go to get all the information that they need about you, as well as links for you to go other places on the internet. So you definitely want to have an about page, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's about you as the author. I recommend having a short bio written in third person, much like you would find on the back flap of a published book. You can also have a longer or, fun bio, but have it in addition to that short and sweet one. Then you want to have a page about your book or books, which is really straightforward. You're going to have the title, the publisher, the publication date, a short description, a cover if you have one. And when you get into multi-book territory, I highly recommend organizing your page by series and chronology. Readers are going to go to your site to figure out what's the first book in the series and in what order should I read these? So make sure your books page is really clear about this. Next, you definitely want to have a contact page, which sounds self-explanatory, but a lot of authors don't, or if they do, it doesn't have all the information it needs to have. So obviously, it should have a way to contact you, and I recommend creating a separate email from whatever personal email you use. I wouldn't do your first name last name at gmail.com unless it's a pen name, because you want to keep the stream separate, in my opinion, of the email that fans and readers can email you at versus the one you use for all of your everyday things. They can filter into the same inbox, especially if you're using Gmail. It's really easy to set up an email on your domain and then have it import into your personal Gmail. I would do that personally. Next, you need to have your professional contact information on your contact page, and that means your agent. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to an author site wanting to know, I wonder who their agent is, and it's not on there. It should be for, curiosity's sake. People like me want to know. Aspiring writers want to know who represents you. But it is for business inquiries as well. If someone has a legitimate business opportunity for you, that could be a film opportunity, foreign rights, sub-rights, all sorts of things. You want to have your agency information on there and who people can contact for business inquiries. Once you're published, this is also the space that you want to have contact information for your publicist at your publisher if it is the preference that things go through them, such as ARC requests. Authors really shouldn't be handling those. Next, I do recommend having an events page. If you're going to be places, put that on your site so that readers know where to find you. Pretty straightforward. Once you get going, I also recommend having a frequently asked questions page because inevitably you're going to get the same questions over and over again in that nice email that you set up on your contact page. And putting up an FAQ can maybe stop you from getting some of the more common ones or not. But also just as a reader, I like to read FAQ pages on author sites. I think it's a good idea. If you have an author newsletter, make sure that information is prominently displayed on your website and easy to find, ideally on the homepage, and also if you have a navigation bar on your site, in the navigation bar. Make it easy for people to sign up because it is one of the best ways to get the word out about your books. And last but certainly not least is social media links and everywhere else that you are on the internet. You want to have these displayed prominently on your site, ideally on every page. Good website builders will have a function where you input your social links once and then they display on every single page. Twitter, Instagram, etc. All the places that people can find you on the internet. Finally, I'm going to talk about actually building your website. Where should you do it? How does it work? How much does it cost? The answer is, it varies. Ultimately, the choice depends on your budget as well as how web savvy you are. The choices fall into two basic camps, which is website builders and self-hosted. Self-hosted is ultimately going to be a little less expensive than a web builder that you pay for, and it's going to be fully customizable, but you do have to have some skills. On the other hand, website builders are going to be slightly more expensive usually, the ones that you pay for, but it's super intuitive in DIY. I advise authors who are definitely less tech savvy and coding savvy to just pay for a website builder. Even if you're spending a little bit more per year than I am for being self-hosted, you're going to have fewer headaches. But if you want ultimate control or a really custom design, self-hosted is the way to go. But I want to start by digging a little deeper into website builders, which is what most people are going to go with. Most of these sites start out as free options, and you've probably heard about a lot of them, such as Blogger, WordPress, Tumblr, Wix, and Weebly. It is free to sign up for these services, and you can kind of build a little page. Blogger, WordPress, and Tumblr, of course, are primarily blog platforms. All of these offer an option to then add a domain name. So for the same cost that I already mentioned, about $15 a year, you can just attach a professional domain name to your free site. You're not paying for anything else, but you are limited to the basic design tools available to free users. And ultimately, I think that these sites look like free websites, and that's the downside. But if you're on a really limited budget, there is nothing wrong with doing a free site and a domain. However, I will say that once you get into the territory where you have a book deal, provided you got a decent amount of money for it, but even if you didn't, a paltry advance should still cover having a professional author website. This is when you get into the paying a decent chunk of change for a web builder, but getting beautiful results. That said, not all of these sites and their pay options are created equal. I break them into what I consider worth it versus not worth it boxes. On the not worth it side, I personally don't think it is worth upgrading your WordPress.com or your Blogger site to a fully paid option, because even the fully paid options, which are really expensive, like WordPress.com, the fully paid option that gives you as much customization as they are willing to offer you, is over $200 a year. It's approaching $300 a year, making it $100 more expensive than Squarespace, which I'm going to get to in a minute, but spoiler, I recommend Squarespace over WordPress.com. You're just not getting much for the money. I feel like WordPress has changed a lot, honestly, over the years, and now they go, ooh, we're going to pull in unsuspecting people who don't know much about the internet, charge them $300 a year, and haha, if only they knew if they were self-hosted, they could pay a fraction of this and get way more functionality on the same platform. I think it's a racket. I have similar issues with Wix and Weebly. They are better options than Blogger and WordPress.com, but even at the full pay option, you're still really limited in what you can do. And a lot of the sites, I think, still look a little bit unprofessional. Ultimately, you're going to pay less for some of the other options I'm about to go over for a nicer looking website. And I think that with websites, it should always be a delicate balance between the price, how good it looks and how customizable it is, with your skill level and what you are able and willing to do. And the thing is, if you have a low to moderate skill level, you can get a better website for less money out of Squarespace or Tumblr than you can with Blogger, WordPress, Wix, and Weebly. Thus, I'm about to talk about the ones I like. I'm going to start with Tumblr. This is a great free to low cost option. You can have a free Tumblr. You can add your domain onto it. Again, that's $15 a year. And then you can purchase a one-time template. They have options that start at about $19 and they go up and kind of average out at about $49. If you find one that you really like for a one-time purchase of, let's say, $49, you can use that template for all time. So it's a one-time investment, and then you have it for however many years you want to use that template. I think that's a really good kind of low option. You know, the initial investment of $49 plus $15, and then the yearly $15 domain renewal. That's a very good option. And Tumblr has the built-in function of the Ask box. It'd be great if I could say that word. Ask box. That's really hard to say, which I like because it encourages engagement. I'm going to go over that at the end too. I'm going to show it to you. Then there is Squarespace, which is my new favorite thing. I don't use Squarespace, but I kind of wish I did. But I'm so deep into self-hosting that there's no going back at this point, or at least at this point, maybe later. But I have helped friends build Squarespaces, and also a lot of New York Times best-selling authors now have their sites on Squarespace, which I think says a lot. Squarespace is only $144 for the year. If you pay upfront, it's a little bit more expensive if you go for the monthly installments, but I think you should do the upfront payment. And of course, that'll then be $144 every year. but that includes your domain. It's bundled into your Squarespace purchase. And then they have a variety of DIY drag and drop templates. They are so easy to use. I will say, Wix and Weebly also have drag and drop functionality. WordPress doesn't. I don't think Blogger does, though I honestly haven't used it in a long time because I found it not quite as satisfactory as other options. But Squarespace's design, I really think it's the best of all worlds. You're getting a beautiful website that's easy to put together at an affordable price. Take a look at the end of the video. I'm going to show you some author websites on Squarespace, and it might surprise you who has one. Last but certainly not least is being self-hosted. I mentioned before that this is when you pay for your own host and then you use tools to build your website yourself. It sounds daunting, but it really isn't as bad as it sounds. So in my case, I use eBound Host. You may have heard of other web hosts. GoDaddy is one of them, but I don't recommend it. Don't forget that. There's also Bluehost. I also have reasons and I don't recommend that one. And I used it for years, but I've been on eBound Host for about 2 years and I'm really happy with it. They essentially provide the space for me to put my website or websites on. One nice thing about self-hosted is that for one hosting fee, you can host multiple domains, which is nice. But then there are the tools. The tools are easier to use than you think. What I use is actually WordPress.org. And I know I was throwing some real shade on WordPress just a few minutes ago, but that is WordPress.com. WordPress.org and WordPress.com are two separate entities, though they have the same base code. WordPress.com is a free website that you can sign up for and you use their blogging tools, their back-end tools. So when you use WordPress.org, it's going to look very similar because it is the same base program. However, WordPress.org is a free website building tool. The trick is you have to pay for your own host. But with WordPress.org, you get far more flexibility that you're just not going to get on WordPress.com. So I use WordPress.org software to build my websites. I can upload custom themes, install plugins. There's all sorts of cool things that you can do, and it's really intuitive from the back end. And that brings me to themes. WordPress.org has a ton of free themes that you can search and install onto your website. You'll be familiar with those if you have used WordPress.com, but here's the thing. All of those themes that you see when you're at WordPress.com that they won't let you install onto your website unless you pay $244 a year are free to install through WordPress.org. It's a real racket. WordPress.org is fantastic. Personally, I use outside themes. I use a site called elegantthemes.com. This actually came to me as a recommendation from Susan Dennard. So if you go to susandennard.com, that is an Elegant Themes theme that Susan has customized herself as she has some real coding know-how. I use Elegant Themes theme Divi. It is a drag and drop theme, very similar to what you see on Squarespace or Wix, and I love it. It's incredibly versatile, and I've been able to play around with it and, develop sites looking the way that I want them to. It's not perfect because I'm not a coder. Divi is definitely meant to be a base theme that people with coding know-how can do all sorts of whiz-bang things to. But even the super basics produce a very nice looking website. I'm very happy with it. Elegant Themes, I believe, is $79 a year, and you get access to all their themes. They have over 100. I just have fallen in love with Divi and stuck to it. But if you want, you can experiment with all sorts of themes that they have. And they have themes that are really good for blogging, that are really good for photo-based websites. There are tons of options. What I like about being self-hosted, which I mentioned before, is that for a relatively low cost, I have this hosting space that I can use any way that I want. So I paid eBound Host $120 when I signed up for 2 whole years of hosting. That is nothing. That's like $6 a month. That's an amazing deal. Compare that to, Squarespace is $144 for a year. So you're paying more for Squarespace for a year than I'm paying for eBound Host for 2 years. It's a pretty good deal. Then, as I mentioned, I have my yearly Elegant Themes cost plus my domain cost. Because I do pay for Elegant Themes, my yearly cost is probably on par with what any author would pay to have a Squarespace, but I like it because of the versatility I have with self-hosting. I can just do lots of different things to my website. That said, there are downsides to self-hosting that I do want to warn people about. You do have to have a little bit of technical know-how. I do some CSS to customize my site the way I want, and also you have to manage your own security. Self-hosted sites are vulnerable in a way that if you use a website builder, they're not, because part of paying a website builder is that they take care of security themselves, whereas if you're self-hosted, you have to take care of it yourself. And I do also pay for a premium security service to keep my WordPress site safe. So, I mean, there are pros and cons to them. There's one thing I haven't brought up yet, and that is hiring a professional website designer to design your author website. You absolutely can do this, and a lot of authors do. If you've gone to an author website and it's like extra snazzy, it was probably custom designed. And if you're gonna hire a custom designer, you need to be self-hosted. They need the flexibility of a self-hosted website platform to build you a site. So if that's the option you want, you're gonna end up being self-hosted. So in addition to what you're paying for the host, you're going to pay the designer a fee. It is usually a one-time fee. You don't get continual updates from that designer. So when you pay for a design, you need to be sure that you're going to be happy with it for at least a year, if not more. Because some designers, I mean, they're expensive because they're doing custom and intense work for you. So you're going to pay a couple $1,000s for a really good website designer. So make sure you aren't going to change your mind in 6 months and want to change your design, which is why I don't recommend hiring a designer if you choose to until you have your cover. That said, if you didn't get a really large book advance, I personally don't recommend hiring a professional web designer. I think that you can get just as far, if not further, going with the Squarespace option. It's really my favorite option for authors. It's my number one recommendation because it's a perfect middle ground. You're paying a little bit of money per year for an incredibly sleek and attractive author website. There's a lot more to go over when it comes to author websites. Despite how long this video is, there's even more. And in other videos, I'll talk about things like branding, designing a logo, working with WordPress.org if you decide to go self-hosted. Maybe I'll even do something about Divi. It's a really great layout theme. I might also dig into Squarespace for you. But to close out this video, now I'm going to show you what my 3 key recommendations are in the primary areas, which are free option, pay website builder option, and self-hosted. So I want to go over my key recommendations of where you might build your author website, and I want to actually show you kind of what some of my recommendations look like. Starting with your best free option, my recommendation is Tumblr. So you might already have a Tumblr, as you know, it's free to sign up for. And this is the back end of my Tumblr. In fact, this is the current look. I use a pretty traditional layout, but you can compare that with, for example, this is Agent Tao Lee's Tumblr, which she uses as a website, and you can kind of see that on the top, she has options for sub pages. So if you're in the back end, you can browse through. There are a lot of free layout options on Tumblr that you can customize. This is one that you can definitely customize to look like a website. When you're going through, you can kind of see if they have a top column option. There are a lot of different choices and options. And also what you can do on Tumblr, it's kind of half free. Free in the sense that Tumblr itself is free to be on. They do have paid layouts, so for a one-time cost, you could pay for something if you look and see if it looks like the kind of style that you want. So this is a vintage scrapbook style for $19. $49 is kind of the sweet spot on Tumblr, but you're just paying for one template, but you have a lot of options. A lot of people design for Tumblr. You have a lot of different directions that you can go in. So going back to what Tao has, She has an About Me page. This could be your About Me author page. She has a How to Submit page, but you could do a page about your books. And then she has an Ask an Agent function, which is using the built-in Tumblr Ask Box feature. This is one of the reasons I like Tumblr as an option so much, because it encourages engagement while also enabling you to have website function, because you then have your Tumblr on your main page and you can post all sorts of different things. So you can see here also Tao's using the sidebar really well to have additional information about herself. Of course, Tao's an agent, but as an author, you can adjust this to fit your own needs. Next, my favorite option for website builder is Squarespace. This is going to cost you about $144 a year if you pay for it all up front, which is what I recommend. That includes getting your domain, which makes it incredibly cost effective. They have a variety of clean and really versatile layouts. I'm just going to scroll through. You can see some of the ones that they promote on their main page. They're sleek and clean, and everything in Squarespace is based on drag and drop templates. So each of these things within them, when you go in, you'll be able to pick preset templates, but then drag and drop elements around in it. So it's completely customizable. I helped an author friend set up her website on Squarespace, and this is her website. It's very straightforward, very simple. So we picked a template that we liked, and then I designed a logo for her, so that's in this space. And this is a very basic landing page. It's got her book information and a sign up for her newsletter. I like that Squarespace is easily integrated with MailChimp, so this is linked to her MailChimp sign up, so it's really seamless. You can see also social icons. These are easy to integrate, though I did add the Goodreads icon myself. But that's a great example. You can add all sorts of customizable things to your Squarespace. And then you do your sub pages, about the author, about your books, etc. Another great author website of a professional author who uses Squarespace is Victoria Aveyard. I really like what she's done. She's picked a template that has this nice image splash page with her main links and her social icons. Then you can just click around to kind of look at what she's got. I just really like Squarespace as an in-between option for authors. You can get a lot out of this for a small budget and a little bit of work, but the back end is incredibly intuitive. Even if you don't know a ton about building websites, Squarespace is going to be pretty easy for you. And unlike some of the other options I talked about, Wix and Weebly, I just think it looks the best relative to what you were paying for it. Last but certainly not least is self-hosted, and this is when you pay for your own web host and you use software such as WordPress.org, that's the platform that I use, and templates to build your own website. This is my DIY website. It's not the fanciest, but it's functional. So I use something called Elegant Themes. This is a subscription service where you pay a yearly fee to have unlimited access to their themes. They have a lot of them, but my bread and butter is this one right here, which is Divi. It's an incredibly versatile drag and drop theme. In that sense, it's very similar to Squarespace, where it's built on the drag and drop idea. And you can kind of see in their animated demo here, you click and type and drag and drop. I really enjoy it. So this is my site that I built using Divi. I kind of jury-rigged up a splash page here, and then I've got a page about me, and all sorts of sub pages. And in the case of something like this page, which is my contact page, there are actually pre-made templates for Divi that you can upload and use within your site. So it's just really easy and customizable. So another site that I built on a self-hosted platform using the Divi layout, just to show you a different style of site, is the Author Mentor Match websites. So I've got the top bar here, and then I have a dynamic homepage.
It's got a rotating list of blog posts here, and then I have multiple sections. This is a really cool thing that you can do in Divi. You can add sections like this and have icons at the top. And then, I've got the mentors with the photos and the descriptions. It just looks really sleek, and this was all pretty intuitive to do. I found building this really pretty easy. What I like about the self-hosted option for me is that I have a base of web skills, and for a pretty low cost, I'm able to take care of these projects myself. Self-hosted is also a good idea if you do plan on hiring a designer. A designer is going to be able to do way more for you in a open back end with unlimited options than they will on any other kind of site. You're really kind of shackling yourself if you want to hire a designer, but you're not willing to pay for your own hosting space. I do my hosting through eBound Hosts, which I definitely recommend, and it costs me just $120 for 2 years, which is a really good deal. And then, of course, I pay for my domain and my elegant theme subscription. So that is a general overview of your 3 options and my recommendations. So self-hosted with WordPress.org and something like elegant themes, or Tumblr, which is free, or the middle option, which is Squarespace for $144 a year.
And self-hosted. Welcome back. I hope that was illuminating. There is actually a lot more to cover about websites, but for now, I'm going to leave you to absorb and decompress, and please hit me up with questions in the comments. I have lots to say, and in many cases, it's easier to give advice on a case-by-case basis. But also, do you have an author website? What did you end up doing? I'd love to see your links and check it out. And if you're using any of these options but you're stumped on something, maybe I can help.